Give me a second. Welcome in, welcome in. Go to sleep? Hell no. Okay. I wanted to check if my mic was working. Thank you, JC. Peanut butter, yes. But, I did want to test out if people wanted to just have, like, late night readings. But that's just me. So we're probably only gonna read the prologue and then think about what other things to do about it. So the book I do want to read is The Dead Zone by Stephen King, because I do want to start reading again. There's the ocean. Yes, this is our beach episode. I actually do have FNAF books. Late night reading. If you say it, I'm actually gonna ban you. But, yeah, just the prologue. By the time he graduated from college, John Smith had forgotten all about the bad fall he took on the ice that January day in 1953. In fact, it would have been hard to remember it by the time he graduated from grammar school, and his mother and father never knew about it at all. Someone banned Taco? Thank you. They were skating on a cleared patch of runaround pond in Durham. The bigger boys were playing hockey with old tape sticks and using a couple of potato baskets for goals. The little kids were just farting around the way little kids have done since time immemorial. Their ankles bowing comically in and out, their breath huffing in the frosty 20-degree air. At one corner of the cleared ice, 2 rubber tires burned sootily, and a few parents sat nearby, watching their children. The age of the snowmobile was still distant, and winter fun still consisting of exercising your body rather than a gasoline engine. Why is my live being shared this many times? Who are you sharing this to? Johnny had walked down from his house just over the Pono line, with his skates hung over his shoulders. At 6, he was a pretty fair skater. Not good enough to join in the big kids' hockey games yet, but able to skate rings around most of the other first graders, who were always pinwheeling their arms for balance or sprawling onto their butts. Are we sharing live? No. I shared it to JC. What? You don't want to see my live? I get it. It's fine. Now he skated slowly around the outer edge of the clear patch, wishing he could go backward like Timmy Benedict's, listening to the ice thud and crackle mysteriously under the snow cover further out. Also listening to the shouts of the hockey players, the rumble of a pulp truck crossing the bridge on its way to U.S. Gimpson in Libsyn Falls. The murmur of conversation from the adults. He was very glad to be alive on that cold, fair winter day. Nothing was wrong with him. Nothing troubled his mind. He wanted nothing, except to be able to skate backward, like Timmy Benedict's. He skated past the fire and saw the 2 or 3 of the grown-ups were passing around a bottle of booze. "Give me some of that," he shouted to Chuck Spire, who was bundled up in a big lumberjack shirt and green flannel snow pants. And Chuck grinned at him. "Get out of here, kid. I hear your mother calling you." Grinning, 6-year-old Johnny Smith skated on, and on the roadside of the skating area, he saw Timmy Benedict himself coming down the slope with his father behind him. "Timmy," he shouted, "watch this!" He turned around and began to skate clumsily backward. Without realizing it, he was skating into the area of the hockey game. "Hey kid," someone shouted, "get out of the way!" Johnny didn't hear. He was doing it. He was skating backward. He had caught the rhythm, all at once. It was in a kind of sway of his legs. He looked down, fascinated, to see what his legs were doing. The big kid's hockey puck, old and scarred and gouged around the edges, buzzed past him, unseen. One of the big kids, not a very good skater, was chasing it with what was almost a blind, headlong plunge. Chuck Spire saw it coming. He rose to his feet and shouted, "Johnny, watch out!" John raised his hand, and the next moment the clumsy skater, all 160 pounds of him, crashed into little John Smith at full speed. Johnny went flying, arms out. A bare moment later, his head connected with the ice, and he blacked out. "Thank you for the follow." Blacked out. Black ice? Blacked out. Black ice? Blacked out. They told him he had blacked out. All he was really sure of was that strange repeating thought. And suddenly, looking up at a circle of faces, scared hockey players, worried adults, curious little kids. Timmy Benedict smirking. Chuck Spire was holding him. Black ice, black. "What?" Chuck asked. "Johnny, you okay?" "You took a hell of a knock." "Black," Johnny said gutturally. "Black ice. Don't trump it no more, Chuck." Chuck looked around a little scared, then back at Johnny. He touched the large knot that was rising on the boy's forehead. "I'm sorry," the clumsy hockey player said. "I never even saw him. Little kids are supposed to stay away from the hockey. It's the rules." He looked around uncertainly for support. "Johnny?" Chuck said. And he didn't like the look of Johnny's eyes. They were dark and far away, distant and cold. "Are you okay?" "Don't jump it no more," Johnny said, unaware of what he was saying, thinking only of ice, black ice, the explosion, the acid. "Think we ought to bring him to the doctor?" Chuck asked Bill Gendron. "He don't know what he's saying. Give him a minute," Bill advised. They gave him a minute, and Johnny's head did clear. "I'm okay," he muttered. "Let me up." Timmy Benedict was still smirking. Damn him. Johnny decided he would show Timmy a thing or two. He would be skating rings around Timmy by the end of the week, backward and forward. "You come on over and sit by the fire for a while," Chuck said. "You took a hell of a knock." Johnny let them help over to the fire. The smell of melting rubber was strong and pungent, making him feel a little sick to his stomach. He had a headache. He felt the lump over his left eye. Curiously, it felt as though it stuck out a mile. "Can you remember who you were and everything?" Bill asked. Sure I can. I'm okay. Who's your dad and mom?" Herb and Vera Smith." Bill and Chuck looked at each other and shrugged. "I think he's okay," Chuck said, and then for the third time, "But he sure took a hell of a knock, didn't he? Wow." "Kids," Bill said, looking fondly out at his 8-year-old twin girls skating hand in hand, and then back at Johnny. "It probably would have killed a grown-up." "Not a Palick," Chuck replied, and then both burst out laughing. The bottle of Bushmills began making its rounds again. 10 minutes later, Johnny was back out on the ice, his headache finally fading, the knot bruise standing out on his forehead like a weird brand. By the time he went home for lunch, he had forgotten all about the fall and blacking out, in the joy of having discovered how to skate backward. Is this a day-only stream? Yeah, I'm trying to do more streams like this because, I was just curious if people would be more, interested in these streams. But where were we? In the joy of having discovered how to skate backward. "God's mercy," Vera Smith said when he saw him. "How did you get that?" "It fell down," he said, and began to slurp up Campbell's tomato soup. "Are you all right, John?" she asked, touching it gently. "Sure, Mom." He was too, except for the occasional bad dreams that came over the course of the next month or so, and they gave it a follow. The bad dreams and the tendency to sometimes get very dozy at times of the day when he had never been dozy before, and that stopped happening at about the same time the bad dreams stopped happening. Could y'all also not sleep? Well, I've been staying up a little bit, but he was alright. In mid-February, Chuck Spire got up one morning and found that the battery of his old 48 Deseto Soto was dead. He tried to jump it from his farm truck as he attached the second clamp to his DeSoto's battery. It exploded in his face, showering him with fragments and corrosive battery acid. He lost an eye. Vera said it was God's own mercy he hadn't lost them both. Johnny thought it was a terrible tragedy and went with his father to visit Chuck in the Lewiston General Hospital a week after the accident. The sight of Big Chuck lying in that hospital bed, looking oddly wasted and small, had shaken Johnny badly, and that night he had dreamed it was him lying there. From time to time in the years afterward, Johnny had hunches. He would know what the next record on the radio was going to be before the DJ even played it, that sort of thing. But he never connected these with his accident on the ice. But then he had forgotten it. Yeah, I can do more reading streams. And the hunches were never that startling, or even very frequent. It was not until the night of the county fair and the mass that anything very startling happened before the second accident. Later, he thought of that often. The thing with the Wheel of Fortune had happened before the second accident, like a warning from his own childhood. Thank you, Sin. Yeah, I would love to do more things like this. I see that I am getting... Okay, there we go. Okay, The traveling salesman crisscrossed Nebraska and Iowa tirelessly under the burning sun in that summer of 1955. He sat behind the wheel of a 53 Mercury sedan that already had better than 70,000 miles on it. The Merc was developing a marked wheeze in the valves. He was a big man who still had the look of a corn-fed Midwestern boy on him. In that summer of 1955, only 4 months after his Omaha house painting business had gone broke, Greg Stilson was only 22 years old. Missed you? I missed you too. The trunk and the back seat of the Mercury were filled with cartons, and the cartons were filled with books. Most of them were Bibles. They came in all shapes and sizes. There was your basic item, the American Truthway Bible, illustrated with 16 color palettes bound with airplane glue for $1.69, insured to hold together for at least 10 months. Then, for the poorer pocketbook, there was an American Truthway New Testament for 65 cents, with no color palettes, but with the word of our Lord Jesus printed in red. And for the big spender, there was the American Truthway Deluxe Word of God for $19.95. Bound in imitation white leather, and the owner's name to be stenciled in gold leaf on the front cover, 24 color palettes, and a section in the middle to note down 2 births, marriages, and burials. And the deluxe Word of God might remain in one piece for as long as 2 years. There's also a carton of paperbacks entitled America the Truth Way, the Communist Jewish Conspiracy Against Our United States. Greg did better with his paperback, printed on cheap pulp stock, than with all the Bibles put together. It told all about the Rothschilds and the Roosevelts and the Greenblatts were taking over the U.S. economy and the U.S. government. There were graphs showing how the Jews related to... Let me read this first. Related directly to the communist axis, and from there to the Antichrist itself. He does have really good books. How are you doing? I'm doing well. How are you doing? The days of McCarthyism were not long over in Washington. In the Midwest, Joe McCarthy's star had not yet set, and Margaret Chase Smith of Maine was known as that bitch for her famous Declaration of Conscience. Conscience? Yeah. In addition to the stuff being communism, Greg Stilson's rural farm constituency seemed to have a morbid interest in the idea that the Jews are running the world. Now Greg turned into the dusty driveway of a farmhouse some 20 miles west of Ames, Iowa. It had a deserved shut-up look on it. The shades down and the barn doors closed, but you could never tell until you tried. The motto had served Greg Stilson well in the 2 years or so since he and his mother had moved up to Omaha from Oklahoma. The house painting business had been no great shakes, but he had needed to get the taste of Jesus out of his mouth for a little while. He should pardon the small blasphemy, but now he had come back home. Not on the pulpit or revival side this time, though, and it was something of a relief to be out of the miracle business at last. Just stop barking. He opened the car door and he stepped out into the dust of the driveway. A big mean farm dog advanced out of the barn, its ears laid back. It volleyed barks. "Hello, Pooch," Greg said in his low, pleasant, but caring voice. At 22, it was already the voice of a trained spellbinder. "Been a while?" "It has. Welcome in." The Pooch didn't respond to the friendliness in his voice. It kept coming, big and mean, intent on an early lunch of a traveling salesman. Greg sat back down in the car, closed the door, and honked the horn twice. Sweat rolled down his face and turned his white linen suit darker gray in circular patches under his arms and in a branching tree shape up his back. He honked again, but there was no response. The clodhoppers had loaded themselves into their international harvester or their stewed baker and gone into town. Greg smiled. Instead of shifting into reverse and backing out of the driveway, he reached behind him and produced a flint gun, only this one was loaded with ammonia instead of flint. We should be done with the prologue soon. Yeah. Okay. Pulling back the plunger, Greg stepped out of the car again, smiling easily. The dog, which had settled down on its haunches, immediately got up again and began to advance on him, growling. Greg kept smiling. "That's right, Poochie," he said in that pleasant, caring voice. "You just come on and get in." He hated these ugly farm dogs that ran their half-acre of dooryard like arrogant little Caesars. They told you something about their masters as well. "A fucking bunch of clodhoppers," he said under his breath. He was still smiling. "Come on, doggy." The dog came. It tensed its haunches down to spring at him. In the barn, a cow mooed and the wind rustled tenderly through the corn. As it leaped, Greg's smile turned to a hard and bitter grimace. He depressed the flint plunger and sprayed a stinging cloud of ammonia droplets directly into the dog's eyes and nose. "Aw. Hi, Ruby, welcome in." Its angry barking turned immediately to short, agonized yips. And then, as the bite of ammonia really settled in, to howls of pain, it turned tail at once, a watchdog no longer, but only a vanquished cur. Greg Stilson's face had darkened. His eyes had drawn down to ugly slits. He stepped forward rapidly and administered a whistling kick to the dog's haunches with one of his striking air-tipped shoes. "How's your day?" "It's been well. How's yours?" The dog gave a high, wailing sound, and driven by its pain and fear, it sealed its own doom by turning around to give battle to the author of its misery, rather than running for the barn. With a snarl, it struck out blindly, snagged the right cuff of Greg's white linen pants, and tore it. "You son of a bitch," he cried out in startled anger, and kicked the dog once again. This time, hard to send it rolling in the dust. He advanced on the dog once more, kicked it again, still yelling. Now the dog's eyes watering, nose in a fiery agony. "Glad to hear you." "Oh, thank you." One rib broken and another badly sprung. He realized its danger from this madman, but it was too late. The poor dog. Greg Stilsons chased it across the dusty farmyard, panting and shouting, sweat rolling down his cheeks, and kicked the dog until it was screaming and barely able to drag itself along the dust. It was bleeding in a half a dozen places. It was dying. "Should have bit me," Greg whispered. You hear me? You should have bit me, you dipshit dog. No one gets in my way, you hear? No one." He delivered another kick with one spattered air tip, but the dog could do no more than make a low choking sound. Not much satisfaction in that. Greg's head ached. It was the sun, chasing the dog around in the hot sun. Be lucky not to pass out. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing rapidly, the sweat rolling down the face like tears, and nestling in the crew cut like gems. The broken dog lying at his feet, colored specks of light, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat, floated across the darkness behind his lids. His head ached. Sometimes he wondered if he was going crazy, like now. He had meant to give the dog a burst of the ammonia flint gun, drive it back into the barn so he couldn't leave his business card in the crack of the door screen. Come back some other time and make a sale. Now look at the mess. Couldn't very well leave his car now, could he? He opened his eyes. The dog lay at his feet, panting rapidly, drizzling blood from its snout. As Greg Stilson's looked down, it licked his shoe humbly, as if to acknowledge that it had been bested, and then it went back to the business of dying. Shouldn't have tore my pants, he said to it. Pants cost me $5. You shit poke dog. He had to get out of there. Wouldn't do him any good if Clem and his wife and their 6 kids came back from town now in their Studebaker and saw Fido dying out here with the bad old salesman standing over him. He'd lose his job. The American Truthway Company didn't hire salesmen who killed dogs that belonged to Christians. Giggling nervously, Greg went back to Mercury, got in, and backed rapidly out of the driveway. He turned east on the dirt road that ran straight as a stream through the corn and was soon cruising along a 65, leaving a dust plume 2 miles along behind him. He most assuredly didn't want to lose the job. Not yet. He was making good money. In addition to the wrinkles the American Truthway Company knew about, Greg had added a few of his own that they didn't know about. He was making it now. Besides traveling around, he got to meet a lot of people, a lot of girls. It was a good life, except he wasn't content. He drove on, his head throbbing. No, he just wasn't content. He felt that he was meant for bigger things than driving around the Midwest and selling Bibles and doctoring the commission forms in order to make an extra $2 a day. He felt that he was meant for greatness. Yes, that was it. That was surely it. A few weeks ago, he had taken some girl up in the hayloft. Her folks had been in Davenport selling a truckload of chickens. She had started off by asking if he would like a glass of lemonade, and one thing led to another, and after he had her, she said it was almost like, oh. I'm skipping that part. Near Mac's bench. I don't know. Let's just say I'm not reading that part out loud. His head had been aching then. The pulsing specks of brightness shooting and caroming across his field of vision, and he tried to tell himself it was the heat, the explosive heat in the hayloft, and it wasn't just the heat that made his head ache. It was the same thing that he felt in the dooryard when the dog tore his pants, something dark and crazy. I'm not crazy, he said, aloud in the car. He unrolled the window swiftly, letting in summer heat and the smell of dust, and corn and manure. He turned on the radio loud and caught a Patti Page song. His headache went back a little bit. It was a matter of keeping yourself under control and keeping your record clean. If you did those things, they couldn't touch you. And he was getting better at both of those things. He no longer had the dreams about his father so often. The dreams where his father was standing above him with his hard hat cocked back at his head, bellowing, "You're no good, Run. You're no fucking good." He didn't have the dreams so much because they just weren't true. He wasn't around anymore. Okay. He had been sick a lot as a kid. Not much signs, but he had gotten his growth. He was taking care of his mother. And his father was dead. His father couldn't see. He couldn't make his father eat his words because he had died in an oil derrick blown out, and he was dead, and once, just once, Greg would like to dig him up and scream into his moldering face, "You were wrong, Dad. You were wrong about me." And then give him a good kick the way he had kicked the dog. The headache was back, lowering. "I'm not crazy." Oops. "I'm not crazy," he said again below the sound of the music. His mother has told him often that he was meant for something big, something great, and Greg believed it. He was just a matter of getting things, like slapping the girl or kicking the dog, under control and keeping his record clean. Whatever his greatness was, he would know it when it came to him. Of that he felt quite sure. He thought of the dog again, and this time the thought brought a bare crescent of a smile, without humor or compassion. His greatness was on the way. It might still be years ahead, but he was young. Sure, nothing wrong with being young, as long as you understood you couldn't have everything all at once. As long as you believed it would come eventually. He did believe that. And God and Sonny Jesus helped anyone that got in his way. Greg Stilson cocked a sun-burned elbow out the window and began to whistle along to the radio. He stepped on the go pedal, walked that old Mercury up to 70, and rolled down the straight Iowa farm road toward whatever future there might be. Okay. That is the prologue that I have finished up. So right now our characters are... We have John and Greg that are so far as our main characters. Okay. I would say we are about like 2% into the story. Tomorrow I wish to read at least 1 to 2 chapters after I do voice impressions. And yeah. But that's if it was enjoyable. If not, then I won't do it ever again. But yeah. Good night to those that are within the recording. Because I do know that I was recording for the Red app. But yes, I do see myself out now. We'll do this another time. And goodbye, everyone.